You've been there, right? You're stuck in a debate, you have all the facts on your side, but you feel like you're losing. How does that even happen? Well, it's because the winner of an argument isn't always the person with the best logic. It's the person who controls the psychological landscape, the metaphor, before the debate even really starts. And that brings us to this incredibly powerful and, let's be honest, often manipulative tactic called frame control. It's this sneaky way that people can take a totally extreme idea and make it sound like pure common sense, and at the exact same time, make your perfectly reasonable position sound, well, completely unhinged. So how in the world do they pull this off? It's all about hijacking the way our brains are wired. In this explainer, we are going to pull this tactic apart piece by piece. And more importantly, I'm going to give you the exact framework you need to counter it, to fight back, and to take control of any conversation. Because trust me, once you see how this works, you are never going to be able to unsee it. You'll start noticing it everywhere. So the real question is, what are you going to do about it? To really get this, we first have to admit a kind of hard truth about ourselves. We all like to think of ourselves as these super rational beings, right? But in reality, our judgments are massively influenced by things that have nothing to do with logic, especially the framing of an idea. The core of this is a cognitive bias called the framing effect. All it really means is that our brains are total suckers for packaging. Seriously, the words and the metaphors somebody uses to describe something can actually be more powerful than the thing itself. And you see this play out in some pretty startling ways. Behavioral economists proved this with a classic test. When you describe a medical procedure as having a 90% survival rate, people are overwhelmingly in favor of it. But if you describe the exact same procedure as having a 10% mortality rate, approval just plummets. I mean, this just illustrates the point perfectly. The facts haven't changed one bit. It's the same reality, the same outcome. But the frame, that positive or negative spin, completely changes our perception and our decision. And that is the exact vulnerability that manipulators love to exploit. So how does a simple cognitive bias get turned into a weapon? Let's deconstruct the machinery of frame control. We're going to use an absurd example, but it's going to make everything crystal clear. Okay, imagine your opponent wants to abolish all puppies. I know, horrible. Now, if they just said that out loud, they'd be laughed out of the room, right? So instead, they rebrand their totally indefensible position. They don't call it puppy annihilation. Oh no, they cook up this noble-sounding frame, calling it canine protectionism. It makes them sound like the sensible, protective ones. But that's only half the attack. The next move is to control your label. See, they won't call you a puppy lover because that sounds reasonable. Instead, they'll assign you some ridiculous negative label, something like a pupsteria fanatic, to completely discredit you before you even get a chance to speak. They'll use that label to paint you as hysterical and irrational. They might try to frame you as being out of touch with reality, or maybe even as part of some privileged elite who just has too much time on their hands. You notice how none of this actually addresses your arguments? By framing themselves as the voice of reason and you as some kind of fringe lunatic, they prime the entire audience. So before you even open your mouth, the whole discussion is already weighted heavily in their favor. It makes having a logical debate pretty much impossible. And don't underestimate just how well this works. I mean, the statistics are staggering. The person who gets to establish the definitions and the labels in the first 30 seconds of a debate wins the audience's perception something like 80% of the time. If you let them label you, you're going to spend the whole time just defending your own sanity instead of attacking their bad ideas. So how do you destroy this tactic? You can't win a game if you're playing by your opponent's rigged rules. You have to hijack the frame right back. And here's exactly how you do it. This is the frame hijack framework. It's got 3 simple but really powerful steps. First, you have to reject their premise immediately. And whatever you do, do not repeat the negative label they've given you. Second, you expose the rebrand for what it is. It's just deceptive packaging for an ugly idea. And third, you establish the true anchor by setting your own, accurate frame for the debate. When you're exposing their rebrand, that's step 2. This phrase is your most powerful tool. You can just say something like, look, you can call it canine protectionism all you want, but changing the label doesn't change the reality. Let's use accurate language here. What you're actually arguing for is the destruction of animals. This forces them to defend the raw, ugly truth of what they're proposing. A genuine debate is supposed to be a search for truth.
It's not supposed to be some branding exercise designed to humiliate an opponent with deceptive labels. But as long as people are using these tricks, you absolutely have to know how to fight back. And here it is. This is the ultimate psychological cheat code to remember from all of this. The power in any conversation, it belongs to the person who is defining the terms and asking the questions. Your job is to seize that power.
So if you take just one thing away from this whole explainer, let it be this. Do not let somebody else define who you are or what you stand for. Never, ever accept a label that you didn't write yourself. By rejecting their labels and setting your own, you reclaim control of the entire conversation. So I want you to think about the conversations and the debates in your own life, at work, online, with friends, and ask yourself this really critical question. Are you playing by your own rules, or have you let someone else name your game?